Greetings and welcome to this edition of
Positronic Hypersonic.
I'm Barry P. Cook, and I'm here to talk to you about the series premiere of The Walking Dead, Daryl Dixon. Now, I have to say, I wasn't planning on watching this show because The Walking Dead, in the last couple of seasons had really sort of jumped the shark and worn out its welcome. And, it was kind of tired. And I just watched it to the end to see how they were going to end it. And even that was kind of empty because I had already watched World Beyond, and I knew that the zombie apocalypse wasn't going to be over at the end of the series because it wasn't over 10 years later. So I guess I just kept watching to see what they were going to do with some of the characters, namely Maggie and Negan, who I really like. And despite my misgivings of the last couple of seasons of the main show, I did enthusiastically watch The Walking Dead Dead City because of Maggie and Negan, and also because the setting seemed very intriguing to me, New York City. And I wasn't disappointed. If you saw my reviews of the first season of that show, then you know that I liked it quite a bit. But I didn't think they could deliver the same kind of great show as The Walking Dead Dead City with a Daryl Dixon spinoff. It just struck me as, I don't really care about that character in particular the way I cared about the other characters, and the setting isn't going to be all that compelling. I mean, he goes to France, okay, but it's not New York City. So I didn't see anything in any of the promotional material that made me think, oh, this is going to be compelling in a new way. It's going to be good Walking Dead, like the early Walking Dead or like Walking Dead Dead City. But when I saw yesterday on the Webiverse that yesterday was the premiere day, I thought, well, let me check it out. There's nothing else on. And if nothing else, it'll give me something to review on the channel and we'll see if it's any good. And I'm pleased to say that I actually liked it. But let's get to that after we do a quick breakdown of what happened in the premiere episode. So the premiere episode was called L'Âme Perdue, which in French means lost soul, the lost soul. And as it starts, Daryl kind of just shows up in France, like washes ashore in France after being lost at sea, looking presumably for Rick and Michonne or who knows what else. And it isn't long before he encounters some walkers in like a warehouse that he's rummaging through. And he gets burned by one. One of them touches him on the arm and it actually burns him, which I thought was intriguing. We'll have to see what that's about. But he puts down the few walkers that he encounters there and continues walking about France with his big walking stick spear thing. And he encounters a lady and an older man who seem pleasant enough, but after a little bit of an exchange, they knock him out and start robbing him. And this after he helps them against some thugs that showed up during their conversation. But he ends up being found by a nun who takes him back to her abbey where the nuns cauterize the skin on his arm. He then meets one of the nuns more formally. Her name's Isabel, and he gets a bath, at which point he sees that she has some scars as well on her arm. He also notices a boy living there who introduces himself as Laurent, and is apparently a bit of a kid genius, like a savant or whatever, and a little weird. He also then discovers that the nuns have a walker locked up in a room, and apparently this walker used to be Père Jean, which is Father John, who I guess ran the abbey, and also learns that Laurent is seen by the nuns as, like I said, some kind of savant, but also that he has special abilities and that he's destined to become a new messiah. And they apparently want Daryl, who they think is a foretold messenger, that his arrival was foretold, that he's some kind of messenger that's going to help them get Laurent to another part of France so that he can continue growing up there versus where he is now, because I guess it's less safe, so that he's then able to fulfill this destiny as a messiah. And Daryl's like, yeah, you people are cocoa for Cuckoo Puffs, and he dips out. While that's happening, more thugs find the lady and the man from before walking on the road, and after killing the man when they didn't feel like the pair of them were forthcoming with information they had about Daryl, who apparently they're chasing. They make the lady show them where they, I guess, encountered Daryl and where their fellows were menacing them earlier. And the lady, of course, blames Daryl for the thugs being killed, the two thugs that menaced them being killed, one of whom was the brother of the thug leader that took her back to this spot. And at the same time, this thug leader comes across a leaflet left by Isabel, which apparently she goes around putting up, talking about the power of the living, pouvoir des vivants in French, and decides to go to the Abbey to see if she knows anything about Daryl. In fact, Daryl sees them arriving at the Abbey as he's leaving. The thugs gain entry to the Abbey to look for Daryl as Laurent hides in a locked room. They don't want Laurent found. They find the Walker priest, however, Père Jean, and kill it, prompting Laurent to come out yelling, "No, no, no." And when the thugs try to take him away, Daryl shows back up and kills one thug before the rest of the thugs chase him as Isabel runs away with Laurent. Some of the nuns fight some of the thugs with some weapons they have in this armory that we see earlier, swords and maces and all kinds of things. And some nuns, as well as some thugs, are killed. But the thug leader manages to escape after confronting Daryl, who gets the better of him with Isabel's help and wounds him via gunshot as he flees. Mortally wounded in the shenanigans, the Mother Superior dies, telling Laurent that he's the cure for a sick world, and telling Isabel that maybe Daryl is the one to get Laurent where he needs to go after all, which she had doubted previously. Daryl agrees to take Isabel and Laurent where they need to go, and she says she'll get Daryl to a port she'd previously told him about that he now wants to go to. Before the episode ends, we see that apparently the thugs are from a boat that's transporting a bunch of walkers for a yet as unknown purpose. And they're trying to get Daryl back because they're pissed that he messed with their operation before escaping the boat, which they had apparently kidnapped and taken him on off camera between the end of The Walking Dead and the beginning of this series. And that's where the episode ended. So, like I was saying earlier, I really did like this after thinking I wouldn't really care for it. And I think the reason for that is that because it is such a departure from The Walking Dead. I mean, in theme, thematically, it's largely the same. You got walkers, you get people, you got humanity struggling against this crazy world. But there's this sort of overarching narrative of getting the boy where he needs to go. And the reason for that is because he's perceived as having some kind of destiny, not entirely unrelated to like the supernatural. And I'm interested to see where they go with that, even though it's kind of a ripoff of the plot of The Last of Us, except that, Ellie wasn't supernatural or thought to be supernatural. And I like the Isabel character. I find her compelling. So it looks like it could be a good season. But getting back to this episode specifically, I really liked the scenes at the Abbey. I found that to be all very cool. Like, we didn't see anything like that in The Walking Dead. I mean, there was the Isle of Lesbos there, as it were. Oceanside, I guess it was. But I don't know, something about the Abbey itself and the nuns. And, on top of that, this idea of who are these thug people? Why do they have a ship full of walkers? I just found it all very interesting, and that it sort of has enough of a different angle on the whole zombie apocalypse thing from the original show that it's actually worth continuing to watch, which I really didn't think I was going to find. And the thing about it is that it makes me wonder why they didn't try to work some of this kind of stuff into the last couple of seasons of The Walking Dead. I mean, I realize it's France, and I realize on the other show it's New York City, and they were never there. They were in like Georgia and that area in the original show. But like, I don't know, it wouldn't even have to have been these things specifically. Obviously, New York is a unique setting, and there wouldn't really have been a way to work that in unless they went back to like Atlanta or another big city in the South. It would have been a similar vibe. Why they never did that, I don't know. I mean, they were sticking to the comics, but then they ran out of comic book, and the comic book ended, and they kept the show going. So I don't know why they never like did any kind of a drastic locale change during the regular show. I mean, they figured out how to do it after the original show. Why not? Why didn't they do it the last couple of seasons so they wouldn't have been so blah? It's kind of annoying, really, and not even necessarily changing the region. They still could have come up, it seems to me, with more compelling stuff because they just did twice. Like, I don't understand why. I mean, maybe they didn't want to do something like focus in on specific characters to the sort of detriment of all the other characters, but I don't know. I think they really should have because it's great that we're getting this stuff now, but like the last couple seasons of the show were kind of stinkeroni, and the way it ended was stinkeroni. The other thing is, I don't know how they're going to end these particular series in a couple of seasons either without finally at some point curing the zombie thing because if they don't, they're just going to leave it like the end of The Walking Dead, where there's no cure. I mean, again, I realize it's 10 years in the future on the other show, Worlds Beyond. It's still there, but they could jump forward at the end and end it. I just doubt that they will, but I'm still watching because it just seems compelling in the interim. It's a thing. I don't know. I'm rambling, but I did really like this episode. I think they set up a good season of this show. And for now, I'm going to continue watching and I'll be back to review the subsequent episodes. It's a 12 episode season, which is weird because Dead City only got 8. This is getting 12. But anyway, I'm getting out of here for now. I'll be back to review the next episode once it airs. Until I return, I wish you peace and long life.